at you with another dope video. And today I would like to take some time to discuss locs and dandruff. Okay, so I've had a few people ask me the question of how I moisturize my locks. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, I always emphasize the importance of moisturizing from within. And what that means for me is making sure that I'm drinking plenty of waters, focusing on an alkaline-rich diet that includes bountifuls of fresh fruits and vegetables that also have a high water content, and avoiding a lot of acidic foods that dry us out. So that is how I moisturize. I will do a separate video to elaborate on more of those things. But I want to talk about skin conditions that are plaguing 50% of our adult population, and that is Cebric Dermatitis, psoriasis, dandruff, and dry scalp as a whole. So let's talk about those things and my best advice for preventing them. So I believe that although there are shampoos and oils that can help to soothe itchiness, and washing can, get rid of flakes and everything like that, but I think it's important to address the underlying issue of all of these things that cause dry scalp and these scalp conditions. So I myself suffered from very thick, dry, yellow, flaky, patchy, dry skin, mainly towards the front of my crown, but really all throughout different sections of my hair. And this is something that I've been challenged with for most of my life, as long as I can remember, taking care of my own hair. And even when my mother used to do my hair at a younger age, I remember her always having to scratch out and brush out dandruff that would build up and accumulate. And it just seemed like something that I was going to have to deal with forever. I couldn't figure out what to do to get it under control. I tried everything from Salsa Blue to Head and Shoulders, and although those did give me relief, it was not a long-term solution for this problem. So I'd like to take time to discuss what I have learned and things that I have found that have helped me to combat my dandruff and get things under control to a more manageable level. And surprisingly enough, none of them include oiling my scalp or washing my hair excessively. These are things that have worked for me, and I am not a doctor. And most doctors won't tell you this because they are not nutritionists. But my goal is to try to help as many people as I can who are interested in long-term prevention of these skin drying ailments. One of the number one causes of dryness is a fungus that is present on most animals, including humans, called Malassezia. Now, Malassezia is a fungus that in a lot of people does not cause an immune response. But for people that do experience these skin drying conditions, they likely have an excess of this fungus, and it feeds off of oil and thrives on inflammation. So when you look at those things that cause inflammation, it is all based on what we eat. So some of the top foods that contribute to inflammation in our bodies are dairy, that's cheese, that's margarine, any kind of fatty red meats, any kind of processed meats as a whole, processed foods as a whole that contain things such as MSG and aspartame. All of these things contribute to inflammation. Other things that cause inflammation are refined carbs. This includes bread, rice, refined grains. These are things like pastas and oats and things that are typically mass-produced and are depleted of their fiber content and have high amounts of carbs. These are all contributing to inflammation in our bodies. Other things that can cause inflammation are hydrogenated oils, saturated fats, trans fats, alcohol. So all of these things should be consumed in moderation, if even at all. And I know that the term moderation is different in everyone's vocabulary, because moderation could be once a day, could be once a week, could be once a month. But really, these things are so abundant in the American diet that avoiding it completely would not hurt you at this point. It would not hurt to limit your intake on things that you've been consuming in excess your entire life, or you're constantly having to oil or wash. That is not a long-term solution. That is just a short-term remedy for a problem that is happening internally. So it's best to avoid these foods as much as possible. For me, the solution was a complete elimination diet. So I gave up meat, dairy, refined sugar, refined grains, refined carbs, and I really try to avoid processed foods at all. I get my sugar from fruit. I use maple occasionally. I'll use dates as a sweetener. So there's a lot of alternatives. I know it sounds pretty extreme to do elimination diet. Another option that you could try that is going to cost you is a prick test. That is where small amounts of blood are drawn to determine what your allergies are. And most people live with allergies that show up differently outside of the norm. So they feel as though they live allergy free, but really allergies show up different in everyone. And as you get older, these allergies become so extreme that it becomes some form of an itis. And itis equals inflammation. Inflammation equals compromised mucous membrane. And compromised mucous membrane equals excess of whatever the fuck it is that you're eating. Long story short, it is important to be mindful of what you're eating. One thing that the prick test can miss is sometimes these things do not show up until later on in the digestive process. So you may not get symptoms from eating a piece of bread until days later, based on how your body is breaking it down and processing it. So you might not find out what those sensitivities are unless you completely do an elimination diet where you get rid of all of these top allergens that cause inflammation and slowly reintroduce them one by one so you can pinpoint how you react to it. Now, I've done this for years now, so when I reintroduce something into my body that I haven't had for a long time, I usually get a reaction almost immediately within the first 24 hours of consuming it. So for example, with gluten, I do not have celiac disease, but I am gluten intolerant. And this is something that I learned from avoiding gluten and reintroducing it. And when I reintroduce it, I usually get acne, I usually break out like right around my nose, somewhere on my face. I'll oftentimes get a migraine, and later on I may end up having bouts of dry scalp, inflammation of psoriasis. So these are all things that I've learned and that I've been able to address through an elimination diet, and it's best to try to avoid these things for 30 to 90 days. The longer the better, because it really takes that long for your body to adjust and for your immune system not to overreact, overproduce, and show these different types of itis. So while we're focusing on scalp conditions, there are other issues that are also caused by this inflammation, and that includes arthritis, that includes bronchitis, that includes pneumonia, asthma, diabetes. All of these are affecting different organs within the body where the mucous membrane is compromised. So, for example, if you have issues with your pancreas, that is usually the cause of diabetes. If you have issues with your throat, that is usually related to bronchitis. If you have issues with your brain, that is dementia. If you have issues with your lungs, that is pneumonia. So all of these itises and ending in IA and all of these autoimmune diseases, a lot of times we believe that we are born with them, that they are genetic, that it's something that we have to live with, when really you have complete control over this. And I know that this way of living is not accessible for everyone. I realize that I am very privileged to be able to eat the way that I do and to have learned the things that I've learned. But this is the cure-all in terms of nothing else working, getting rid of short-term solutions, and really focusing on the root cause of these issues. And most people are under the impression that the standard American diet is where it's at, and that's not where it's at. In the United States, we experience some of the biggest health issues in the entire world, and that is based on the foods that we eat. The American diet consists of a lot of refined foods, processed foods, and we're not getting the nutrients and things that we need to thrive and to live without these conditions. So what happens is we continue on the standard American diet, we end up with these issues, we see a doctor, and we are prescribed a magic pill that relieves our conditions as long as that pill is effective. But as soon as that pill wears out, we revert back to these conditions, and oftentimes they're even worse than they were initially. And the only solution that these medical professionals are giving us is to continue taking pills. And then you need other pills to counteract the side effects of the pill, and a lot of times these side effects are worsening conditions of what you're trying to remedy. So it's just all a clusterfuck, and it is not going to fix things long term. And that goes with simple remedies such as vinegar or tea tree oil. If you're not constantly doing this, as soon as you stop, your condition is going to persist, and it's likely going to be worse than it was before from all of the aggravation that you're putting your scalp through. The ultimate solution is prevention, and prevention is being mindful of what you're eating and what you're intaking, and trying to align with an alkaline diet to the best of your ability. I know that we are limited on our food options, especially when we are outside of the house. So I would save those moments for moderation. But as far as what you bring into the house, you should be avoiding these things at all costs. If you suffer from any of these scalp and dryness issues, and if you truly want to eliminate them, then this is really something that you need to consider long term. Again, I am not a doctor. I am my own experiment, and this is what I have learned through trial and error. And I hope that this is received by many. I hope that people have the tools that they need to get to a point where they can address and target these flare-ups and pinpoint what it is. And it's different for everybody. So some of the most healthiest foods that you think are not necessarily going to cause an allergic reaction or a flare-up could possibly be the culprit for why you are suffering from these things. And that could even be tropical fruit if you're not from a tropical environment. Your body may not be able to endure those amounts of sugars. So it's just all a matter of really learning yourself, and the best way to do that is, again, an elimination diet by avoiding the top allergens and slowly reintroducing them, and keeping a journal so that you can assess what is causing these flare-ups. And this is beyond the scalp. If you have eczema, if you are diabetic, if you have other inflammation issues, autoimmune issues, then this is something to consider. These issues are not external, they are internal. And your gut is one of the most important parts of your body that you can nurture and take care of, which ultimately leads to healthy growing hair, scalp, and body in general. I'm not going to take up too much more of your time because I can truly speak about this forever, but I will follow up with another video on a similar topic on different ways, food substitutions, and things that you can do to try to adhere to more of an alkaline diet, avoid excess acid. And the number one thing you can do today is drinking more water. Drink more water. All right, y'all, so that is our discussion for the day. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a comment below, turn the bell notification on so you are aware of the next time that I drop a video. And until next time, peace.